Good evening, all the joinees. Hi, this is Ansu. I welcome you all to the webinar conducted by NGEN Markets. By the time the others join in, let's have a look at today's webinar topic. So today we would be focusing on how you can build a model portfolio on our platform. And in order to build that model portfolio, we would be majorly making use of NGEN Fund Score, which is a proprietary scoring mechanism that you can find on our platform for all the funds that are available. Followed by that, we would be also taking you through a portfolio level analysis wherein we could see the asset allocation of the entire portfolio, how has the portfolio been performing against benchmarks, and rollings and contribution analysis. Finally, I would be also showing you different ways how you could take a report or how you can share this proposal with your client. And finally, the quorum would be open for a Q&A session. You could either unmute yourself or type down your questions in the chat box. So let us begin. So this is our NGEN Markets landing page, which is the Markets tab. So today, before beginning with our topic, we would majorly talk about NGEN Fund Score. And in order to know NGEN Fund Score in detail, I would simply load a single fund analysis. I would search for a fund right here in this search funds option. So let's say I select iPro Blue Chip Fund. Once I click on the name of the fund, it takes me to a detailed fund level analysis now. Now, this score, as I highlighted, is something that is given to each of the fund on our platform. And once you load a fund, it comes up as a black tile. And the score for this fund, iPro Blue Chip, is 7.82 out of 10. Now, in order to understand how do we arrive at this score, I'll simply click on this black tile. And here you could view a further explanation for this score. Now, firstly, this score will range between 0 to 10. More closer it is to 10, we say better is the score. Now, next, how do we arrive at these scores? Or typically, what are the parameters that we take into consideration to arrive at this score? So, there are two parameters that we take into consideration. First is qualitative parameter, and the second happens to be a quantitative parameter. Uh, Someone has mentioned in the chat box that they're not able to hear me. Can someone confirm if my voice is audible?
Yes, ma'am.
You are
Yeah.
audible.
Yes, sure. Thank you so much. Yeah. Right. So I was mentioning how do we arrive at this score, or the methodology to arrive at this score is there are two parameters, quantitative and qualitative. So the quantitative parameters, there are two parameters that we take into consideration. First is the AUM of the fund, which is we given 10% consideration to the AUM of the fund, and the remaining 90% gets distributed between the short, medium, and long term returns and volatility. So, short is equivalent to 1 year, medium equivalent to 3 year, and long equivalent to 5 year returns and volatility. And that 90% gets distributed equally, which is 30, 30, 30 each between short, medium, and long term returns. Now, as I highlighted, these happens to be the quantitative parameter. There is also one qualitative parameter that we take into consideration, which happens to be the age of the fund, stating that a younger fund will comparatively have a lower score when we compare it to that of an older fund, typically because the younger fund does not have enough data to prove its performance against an older fund in the market, because it hasn't seen the market ups and down as a older fund would have been. Now, this disadvantage of this younger fund gets removed as soon as it completes 5 years in the market. Why? Because our long term time period that we take into consideration is 5 years. So, as soon as this young fund completes a 5 year history in the market, its comparison would be similar to that of an older fund. Now, this score that you see for each of the fund, this is comparable intra-category only. That is within category comparison. So the score of a large cap fund cannot be compared with that of a small cap or a mid cap fund. This is within category comparison. And also this score keeps on changing on a month basis. So here on this line graph, you can also view the previous score that was assigned to each of the fund once you click on this black tile, which gives you a further explanation about the fund score. Now, this was all about an explanation for the fund score. As our today's topic is to create our portfolio basis this fund score, for that topic, I would be moving towards this funds section. Now, this happens to be our screener. The first page that opens up will be our screener, which helps us to filter out and select funds from our respective categories. So all you need to do is click on this filter categories as an option. Four buckets, which are the asset classes, equity, debt, hybrid, and others, come up. You could select your respective category by simply clicking on this checkbox next to the name of each of the category. So let's say I select maybe FlexiCap as a category, followed by focused. Then I'll go forward with mid cap, a small cap category, and maybe let's say a sectoral category of infotech. In addition to this, I'll also select a category from this hybrid asset class. I want to be having a higher exposure or maybe some part of exposure towards debt as a component. So let's say I'll select conservative hybrid, right? So in total, I have selected 6 categories. So each of funds that comes under those 6 categories will now show up. However, if at all you see, it is just showing 50 results at the moment. But if you consider funds from each of these 6 categories, this will be much more than 50. And the reason for that is by default, we show only the top 50. You could click on this drop down and select the show top number of funds. At max, we have till 300. Let's say I'll select show top 200 and I click on apply. Right? So basis these 6 categories, there are a total of 156 funds that are coming up. Now, you can also filter this list of funds basis your AMC preference as well. Simply click on filter AMC. You can select your respective AMC from which you currently wish to see funds. So I am not selecting any specific AMC. This is an option that is available for your preference as well. Now, rather, just before creating the portfolio, I will also use basic filters which are available on the platform. So there are filters such as minimum AUM, minimum age, or a minimum time period return as well. Let's say for now, I'm just using 2 filters. First is minimum AUM. So I would cap my AUM to be at 3000 crore and my minimum age as 5, and I'll click on apply. So I am letting the system know to show me only such funds from these 6 categories whose AUM is 3000 crore and above, and those funds have been in the market for at least 5 years. So just by these 2 basic filters that I had input, you can see our list from 156 has now come down to just 69 funds, which are meeting these 2 filters and are from these 6 categories accordingly. Now, as I highlighted, I would be shortlisting them basis the fund score. So this is the column of fund score that comes up, the third column. So this has been assigned or arranged in the descending order of fund score. Now, how can I say that? That is because you can see that this column is highlighted in a blue color. So let's say now I maybe arrange it basis the AUM. Now this column will get highlighted in a blue color. So that is an identifier which lets you know the data has been arranged or assorted basis the column heading that way. I'll again sort this basis NGEN Fund Score. Now I would be selecting the best performing fund from each of the category. So our first category that shows up right here is FlexiCap Fund, which has a fund score of 9.62. So from this category, I would be selecting Parag Parekh and I would be taking it to this compares section. wherein we have an option to instantly create a portfolio of the list of funds that we have just selected. So all I need to do is click on this compare icon which states add to compare. Just by clicking on that, your components will move to the compare section. So I've selected my first fund. Second fund out of the second category, which is focused, the best performing is HDFC Focus 30 Fund. I would be clicking on the compare icon. Followed by that, in mid cap as a category, Motilal Oswal happens to be the best performing. Next, in small cap as a category, Bandhan happens to be the best performing fund. Followed by that, in the infotech, sectoral infotech as a category, the fund happens to be SBI Technology Opportunities Fund. And our last category, which is conservative hybrid, IPRU regular saving happens to be the best performing fund. So I have selected onto these compare icon, and now I would go to this compare section wherein our 6 funds, one from each category, the best performing fund is something that I have added to the compare section. Now, before creating a portfolio out of this, what I would be checking is the position overlap between all the funds that I have currently taken. So we would try to ensure that the overlap is minimum or as low as possible so that the entire portfolio would not get impacted because of the same overlap factor. Now here, if at all we see, the overlap is pretty decent. At max, the highest overlap is between HDFC Focus 30. So if I keep my cursor on this 29%, on the left, you could see HDFC Focused 30 gets highlighted. And on top, right here, Parag Parikh gets highlighted, which suggests that these two funds have similar portfolio to an extent of 29%. Now, this that way you can say that it is within the limit. We have also given here certain color coordinations as well. If the overlap keeps on getting higher, you would be able to see darker color co- darker color tiles, which typically would let you say that you need to take decision to keep either of the two funds into your portfolio because the entire portfolio might get impacted. Now, one more thing, you can simply click on that tile and it also gives you list of common stocks. What is the holding of each fund for each of these stocks, and minimum out of these two is what we mentioned in this overlap column. And once you total this overlap column, it comes to 29%, and that is exactly what we show onto this tile-like structure. Now, basis the overlap look pretty decent for the funds that I have currently taken from 6 different categories. So I am ready to convert this as a portfolio, and we have an option available right here, convert to portfolio. Once you click on that, a portfolio gets saved in this portfolios tab. So since this was created from our compare tab, it will be available in our compare folder. So what I would do is I would collapse all the folders, and this from compare, I'll just expand this. So this is what we just created from compare 72. First thing that you could do is rename this file as well. So let's say I'll just rename this as test portfolio and I click on enter. So this is a way how you can rename and save the portfolio. So either you can search for your portfolio from this section. If not, you can collapse the entire folder and select your respective folder and simply click on this drop down and select run as an option to go forward with a detailed portfolio analysis. Now, as I highlighted, since we had created this portfolio from this compare section, our portfolio by default would be an equally allocated portfolio only. However, we have given you an option to edit these portfolio allocations as well. You can simply click on edit and save as, and you can change the allocations as per your requirement. Since being created from the compare section, the allocation would be equally allocated. Next to that, you can see this time period that is under consideration, which can be changed as well. You can simply click on change, and there are options such as either you can input your custom time period. If not, we have also provided certain preset time periods. You could select them accordingly. Let's say I would select and run the analysis for this portfolio, maybe for the past 5 years. So you can see the date has gotten picked up automatically, which is 8th March 2020. So firstly, I would be going towards the asset allocation tab. Now this is the section which shows you the total asset allocation for the entire portfolio. Firstly, you could see the total exposure that is there towards this portfolio. Now, let's say I just read out this data, which is HDFC Bank. It says that this stock has an exposure towards this portfolio to an extent of 3.14 percentage. Now, where is this exposure coming from? You could click on this I button. So it says that there are these three funds that are a part of this portfolio, test portfolio that I just created. And these three funds hold HDFC Bank as a stock in its portfolio, and hence giving an indirect exposure towards the portfolio from this stock of HDFC Bank. Now, there are three columns that you could see further ahead as well. So let's say I select this HDFC Focus 30 fund and try to explain this data. The first column that you see is your portfolio. So it says this fund, HDFC Focus 30 fund, is a part of this test portfolio. And in this portfolio, it is allocated to an extent of 16.67%. The next column mentioned as fund says 9.69, saying that in this fund, HDFC Focus 30 fund, 9.69% is allocated towards HDFC Bank as a stock, which is an equivalent to an exposure of 1.62 towards this entire test portfolio that we are looking upon. Now, how do we arrive at this 1.62? It is simple multiplication of your portfolio 16.67 with that of the 9.69, which is your portfolio allocation in the fund, followed by the fund's exposure towards the stock. Now, you can also verify the same just by clicking on the name of the fund. We can go forward to a portfolio of a fund. And in this analysis, we have a tab called as asset allocation, wherein in the overviews tab, you could view the total holdings that are there for this fund. So you can verify that HDFC Bank is a component in this fund's portfolio, which is to an extent of 9.69. And that is exactly what we show in the asset allocation section as well. Now, since we had also selected conservative funds from hybrid as an asset class, you can also view that there is a bar graph for debt as well towards this portfolio, and as well a bar graph for foreign equity too. So there is no direct holding into such foreign stocks in this portfolio. However, it says that there are certain funds in this portfolio which holds on to these foreign stocks. So again, you can click on this I button, and then it gives you a list of which all are the mutual funds that are there in your portfolio that are now holding on to this foreign stock, which is Microsoft Corporation. So this was all about our overviews tab. Next, we move towards the concentration tab. So this lets you see the equity market exposure for the entire portfolio. So firstly, we are viewing this as percent of total portfolio. So this shows you the split of the large, mid and small cap split for the entire portfolio. Now, once you add this 33 with 16 with 20.6, you would arrive at this 70.29 percentage. And everything other than this equity, which is debt, cash, foreign equity, and every other section which is other than equity, will come up in this others as a pie section. Now, since currently we are viewing this as a percent of total portfolio, we have this others as a pie section as well. We also have an option to view this as percent of equity exposure, which is typically saying that this 70% of equity exposure, we are rebasing it to 100, and basis that we are now showing you the split in terms of large, mid and small cap, wherein we are considering our equity exposure to be 100, and hence we are showing how is the total large, mid and small cap exposure coming up. Followed by that, we have our equity sectoral exposure, which lets you see which sector is heavily weighted towards our portfolio. So currently it is saying IT software as a sector has the highest exposure towards this portfolio to an extent of 14.69%. So you can simply click on that bar graph, and in that sector, which all are the stocks that have exposure towards this portfolio and to what extent the exposure is there can also be seen. And this data can also be taken up into a Excel file as well. Followed by that, in a similar way, we have a debt levels exposures too. So since we also had a component which is IPRU regular saving fund coming in from a conservative hybrid category, it does has certain debt component as well. So you could see firstly the credit ratings that are there in the underlying debt components, highest exposure coming from a AAA rated security, which is to an extent of 4.72, followed by a AA rated security. Along with that, you can also view the average maturity for the debt securities to an extent of 3.40 years and the average duration to an extent of 2.12 years. In addition to that, you can also view what all are the debt securities, and the underlying exposure that is coming in from these debt securities can also be seen. After asset allocation, we have the performance tab, which now lets you see how is our portfolio performing against that of the benchmark. Now, in this graph, you could see there are two lines. First is a blue line, which is showing the performance of the portfolio, followed by a black line, which is showing you the performance of the benchmark. Now, by benchmark, what do I mean? You can see it has been mentioned as reference index 2. Now, this is auto benchmarking that happens on the platform. Now, in order to understand this in detail, I would scroll up and move towards this right hand side section, which has been mentioned as benchmark. So here you can see reference index 2 has been selected. Now you can go to this engine as a section and search for reference indices as well. So you can see that reference index 2 stands for 90% Nifty 50 TRI and 10% CCIL bond. Now we call this as auto benchmarking that happens on the platform basis your entire portfolio asset allocation. So right here, basis the equity and debt split. Basis this split, the platform would suggest a benchmark out of these 11 reference indices. You can either go forward with them. If not, let's say you wish to benchmark it against maybe a broad based index, maybe from NSE or maybe from BSE. You could anytime do that and view the performance of your portfolio against that benchmark that you selected. As well, you also have an option to custom create your benchmark. So in this custom section, we have an option called as manage custom indices, wherein from this list of benchmarks that are available, you could select your appropriate benchmark. Multiple benchmarks you could create. You could give each benchmark a weightage as per your requirement. Once that is done, you give this index a name and click on Save Custom Index. So your custom created index would get saved in such a format, post which you can view the performance of your portfolio against that of the benchmark that you created a totally custom way. Now, in terms of this performance chart, how do we read this data? For example, parameters like cumulative return, which lets you see the absolute point to point return for the portfolio against that of the benchmark. You can see that the portfolio is generating a return of 199%, followed by the benchmark in the same time period generating a return of 119% only. Now, in order to achieve this return, what was the risk volatility that was undertaken? You could come to this annual volatility as an option. So it says that the portfolio took a risk of 13%, while our benchmark took a risk of 16.5%. So you could say our portfolio generated a better return with a lower level of risk in this time period of 5 years that we are analyzing. And we could also confirm that basis this Sharpe ratio, which happens to be the risk adjusted return, which is indeed higher for our portfolio, which is at 1.20 when we compare it to that of the benchmark, which is at 0.62. Next to that, you can view this cumulative excess on benchmark, which says rather the alpha or the excess that is generated by the portfolio over that of the benchmark. Now, here itself, we saw that the cumulative return by the portfolio was anyway higher to that of the benchmark, and a subtraction of portfolio return with that of a benchmark return is how we arrive at this cumulative excess on benchmark to an extent of 80%. Followed by that, we can also have a look upon these capture ratios. Up capture, which lets us see how is the portfolio performing when the benchmark was in a bull run. Now, how do we arrive at this 102.9? Here as well, you can click on this I button and it gives you an explanation for the same. So in up capture calculation, we would consider only such months when the benchmark generated a positive return, irrespective whether the portfolio generated a positive or a negative return. For example, in the month of March 2023, our benchmark generated a positive return of 0.55, while our portfolio generated a negative return of 0.24. So here we've also recorded or considered the returns of the portfolio as well. Why? Because we give major consideration to the benchmark returns. So in such a way, we consider all those months when the benchmark generated a positive return. And once we have those data, we take a CAGR of these data sets. So here you can see the returns for the portfolio comes up to be 55%, while for the benchmark, it comes up to be 53%, clearly suggesting that when the benchmark was moving up by 53%, my portfolio moved up by 55%. So saying that when the benchmark was in a bull run, my portfolio was rather able to beat the benchmark. Now, how do we arrive at this figure of 102.9? It is a division of this portfolio return with that of the benchmark return. And we say higher the up capture ratio, better is the performance of the portfolio to beat the benchmark. And similarly converse is the down capture ratio. So here we would be considering only such months wherein the benchmark generated a negative return, irrespective whether the portfolio generated a positive or a negative return. And in a similar way, we would be taking a CAGR of the data set. So here itself, you could see that when the benchmark was falling down by 30%, my portfolio fell down by only 19.6%. So rather suggesting that our portfolio is resilient when the benchmark or when the markets are in a bear run. And here as well, we arrive at this number that you see 64 in a similar way, which is division of this portfolio return with that of the benchmark return. And we say lower is the down capture ratio, better is the resilience of the portfolio against the benchmark when the benchmark is in a bear run. And by lower, we mean it is to be lower than 100. The reason why we say 100 is because we consider the benchmark to be at 100, and hence up capture more than 100 the better and down capture lower than 100 the better. So this was the performance statistics that we looked upon. Next, we would be moving towards this scenarios tab. Now this lets us create in customized scenarios of our own. So rather than changing the entire portfolio start and end date, you would be having an option to create in an internal scenario. All you need to do is click on add custom scenario and create your scenario. There are certain inbuilt scenarios that we have provided onto the platform. However, you could create your custom scenarios as well. So let's say I maybe create a year to date 2025 scenario. So I've put in the scenario name. I'll take in the start date as 1st Jan 2025 and the end date as yesterday's trading day, which is 12th March 2025. And I click on save custom scenario. So once you do that, your scenario will get saved right here. All you need to do is click on the name of the scenario that you created. So in this time period, let's say the time period that I had input, which is year to date, 1st Jan 2025 till 12th March 2025, we are aware that the markets were falling, and that is what you could view right here. The benchmark gave in, of course, a negative return of 4.46%, while at the same time, our portfolio fell considerably more than that of the benchmark, negative 10.90%. And at the same time, the volatility of our portfolio happens to be 13.5, whereas for that of the benchmark, it comes up to be 11.16%. Now, these were the few tabs that you can have a look on a portfolio level analysis. Followed by that, the reporting option, those are available on the platform, is firstly a PDF and a PPT. So I would firstly be showing you a PDF. So this is our portfolio level analysis, a PDF report. In the premium version of the platform, these reports come up as co-branded report, wherein your company name and logo would appear on the top left hand side. So the first page will show you the performance statistics of the portfolio against that of the benchmark, followed by the top holdings and exposures, the asset allocation of the portfolio, the AMC exposure, which is letting you know which AMC is heavily weighted towards the portfolio. Currently, since this is an equally allocated portfolio, we would see similar level of exposure even from the AMC level as well. Followed by that, the equity market exposure, as well as the debt exposures, if there are any underlying, comes up into the report. And the last page being the rolling analysis and the drawdown analysis. And of course, the last page would anytime be a disclaimer, which can be edited in the settings section on the platform. So this is our portfolio level PDF. Next, as I highlighted, we also have a portfolio level PPT too. Now, this can also be used as an option of maybe a proposal creation that you wish to share with your fresh client, wherein you can create an amount based portfolio as well. So let's say this client has an AUM of 20 lakh. You could input that in this gray section in this amount based PowerPoint option and simply click on create PPT. So this is our portfolio level PPT. We've also made an update wherein on the first page of the PPT, your company logo would now come up a bit bigger in size. So this first page wherein that amount that I had input of 20 lakh or your amount that you input for your client, the proposal amount, gets distributed among the schemes of the portfolio basis the allocations that are there in the portfolio. Followed by that, you could view the asset allocation of the entire portfolio, the equity market and debt exposure, the performance statistics against that of the benchmark, the rolling returns as well the drawdowns, and the final page of course being the disclaimer. However, PPTs on our platform are editable, so you can add in slides, you can remove slides if maybe you feel that rulings seems to be a lot for your client to understand. You can maybe simply delete the slide. If you wish to add in any comment, that is anytime possible. Editing of these PPTs are anytime possible. Now, the next reporting option, there are two more, which is first is share link. So this is a link which you can share across with your client. Let's say if you wish to hide the NGEN Fund Score, which comes up right next to the name of the fund, you can click on that, and you also have the option to log the start and end date in this link. Your client will not be able to change the time period. So this link remains active for a total of 7 days at max. You could reduce the number of days as well. And once you create this link, so you can take this link along with you while you're visiting your client, and all you need to do is open this in a new browser. So all the tabs that were visible to you as a user of NGEN Markets will now also be visible to your clients as well. And this link, as I mentioned, will be available for a total of 7 days at max, which can also be reduced. And you can see that the fund score has been hidden, as well as the start and the end date has been locked. And the last option is this client link option, which is more like a mobile friendly link. So since this is like a mobile link, a smaller screen would or a specific details would only be available. So what all would come up in this link that you share across with your client? Firstly, what all are the components that are there in the portfolio? The asset allocation of the portfolios, exposures that are there in the portfolio. Followed by that, the performance statistics against the benchmark that you select, which can also be changed from this section as well before you share the link. The next tab is basic market details that they can have a look upon. And the last tab is this connect as an option, wherein they could write in a message. Once they type in, once they have seen your portfolio analysis, they can suggest you and write in a message, which will be delivered to your mail ID that you have registered with us. Now, how do you share this link? All you need to do is create a pin and click on create client link. So we also have integrated with WhatsApp. You can simply share this to your client over WhatsApp. So you click on this WhatsApp icon, put in your client's mobile number, and once you click on this send, this message will go to them with the link and the password as well, wherein they can have a mobile view of their portfolio, what we just viewed right here. So this is it for all the topic related webinar. If anyone has any questions, you can either unmute yourself or type down your questions in the chat box.
Do we have any option to create portfolio for SIP?
Create portfolios for SIP is what you're asking. Yeah.
Yes,
So,
because the PPT you prepared over
huh,
there was lump sum for lump sum only. So, but we
correct.
don't think for SIP.
So the portfolio analysis, that is correct. The portfolio analysis that we show on the platform is lump sum basis only. Uh, Maybe you can edit these portfolios and maybe you can input those SIP analysis. We have this monthly SIP that you can run on a fund, but that is that way on an individual fund basis.
But suppose if a customer want to do some SIP of 25,000 and I want to suggest him some portfolio, then how do we go ahead with it?
Hi, Arunabh here. Yeah, so there is a little bit of a roundabout way where you can do this. In fact, this is one of the features we're working on. It should be here, on here soon. So basically, this portfolio backtest that you can see, the blue line here, we will also provide a facility where you'll see another tab where you'll basically see the results of an SIP on this portfolio line. But at this point, if you want to do it immediately, you're going to have to download the portfolio prices, save it as a custom security, and then in the compare section, you'll be able to run an SIP analysis on that. But it won't show up in the portfolio section right now immediately.
No, I am not asking about the comparison or something like that. Suppose one of my client is there who wants me to recommend him SIP for rupees 25,000 rupees per month. So how do we go ahead? Suppose right now you showed me that someone want to invest 10 lakh rupees or 20 lakh rupees. So that option is there in your PowerPoint option, right?
Yeah.
But what about SIP?
So SIP for a portfolio of funds, right? Single, so obviously is there.
Single?
See, a single fund SIP analysis is there anyway, but you're talking about if you want to put that 25,000
I'm
in a
not
set of
asking
funds.
about analysis. I hope you understand my question. I am asking about if I want to suggest some fund for SIP
Yeah.
for 5,000 rupees. Suppose you are my client, you are asking me, Abhishek, suggest me funds for 25,000 rupees of SIP for next 10 years. So
Yeah.
how to prepare a proposal over here?
Okay. So are you see if you're suggesting one fund only, obviously that is available.
Suppose I have created a portfolio of 3-4 funds, and
Got it.
accordingly I want to suggest based on his risk profile, right?
Right. Okay. So if you want to provide an SIP for a portfolio of funds that is not immediately available, there is, as I said, a roundabout way which you can still do right now is just go back to the main platform first. This portfolio, you want to show an SIP into this portfolio, right? For example, right?
Suppose
So
I want to suggest these 5, 6 funds like Parag Parek, Bandhan, HDFC, Motilal, SBI, and ICICI.
yeah,
The proportion is same.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah,
Like, and why the customer wants to invest 24,000 rupees as an SIP for 10 years.
yes.
So how do we go ahead with it?
Fine. So that currently is not readily available, but as I said, what you can do is just download the prices for a second. So I'll show you what is available right now. So this is the result of the portfolio backtest. So at fixed rates, this is what the portfolio produces. Now, what we were going to do is take this date and price series, copy it, and put it back into NGEN as a custom security. And once you've done that, if you're looking for what the SIP is going to look like for this portfolio, we copy this and we put it back into the custom securities. Just call it something and yeah, and validate and save it. Okay, so basically what we've done is we've saved the results of our backtest as one single security. Now that we've done that, the reason I'm taking you to the compare section is because you can quickly run a SIP over there. It's not like we're actually comparing anything. So here you go to
This is just like we are doing a back testing or something like that.
yes.
It is not a proposal, right?
Yeah, this is, yeah. So see, here you will only see the results of what it might look like. It's
Right?
not a proposal. Yeah, it's not a proposal. So this will not be a proposal. You'll be able to see what kind of what the SIP might look like. So here we've added a particular custom security and go to the monthly SIP tab. You probably should remove the other funds. Just remove the other ones. Yeah. So basically this, let's run the SIP. Do we have, does it not run on customs? Just refresh it. But I get what you're looking for. That is something that should be coming soon. It's something that other people have also asked for.
See,
Is
I
that,
don't know your name, sir,
yeah,
but that right now we don't have that, right?
of course not. Yeah, as I said, right now it's not readily
Yes,
readily
don't
available.
need to explain all these things. So that is not नहीं है तो नहीं है आ जाएगा बाद में simple.
सर मैं ये दिखा रहा हूँ कि अगर आपको एसआईपी रन करना है तो उसकी
ऐसा नहीं करना। आई वांट टू जैसे अभी आपने एक प्रपोजल बना के दिया कि पीपीटी आप एक 20 लाख रुपए का कस्टमर को दे सकते
हाँ
हो।
जी, हाँ
अब
जी,
मुझे 10-25 हजार रुपए की एसआईपी का भी पीपीटी देना है तो दैट फिलहाल राइट नाउ दिस ऑप्शन इज नॉट देयर राइट।
ईपीटी ऑप्शन इज नॉट देयर। अगर आपको देखना है एसआईपी लगता कैसा चलता है, उसका एक्सआरआर क्या आता है, वो दिख सकता है।
That I understood. Whatever you told me, na, that I understood. That is
ओके,
fine. Okay.
ओके, ओके।
So, is there any possibilities that it might come in next time?
एब्सोल्युटली, ये हमारे हमारे जो बेसिकली डेवलपमेंट की लिस्ट है कॉन्स्टेंटली रहती है डिपेंडिंग ऑन फीडबैक फ्रॉम आवर यूजर्स। सो आपने जो चीज़ अभी मांगी है ये 2-3 लोगों ने पहले भी मांगा हुआ है। तो वो हमारे एज यू नो हमारे एवरी 2-3 मंथ्स वी हैव अ रिलीज, वी रिलीज न्यू फीचर्स। सो दिस इज सेट फॉर आवर न्यू रिलीज विच इज बेसिकली गोइंग टू कम इन द बिगिनिंग ऑफ नेक्स्ट मंथ। सो आई एम प्रीटी श्योर दैट इट विल बी इंक्लूडेड
If it
देयर।
to come in 1 month or 2 months, that is fine. See,
या,
we need to progress. So there is no problem at all. So we'll talk about then at that time.
ऑफ कोर्स,
Thank you so much.
थैंक यू।
Hi,
Hi.
I'm Kalyan.
Yeah,
Thank you, Ansu, and thank you, Arnab, for giving these insights.
yeah,
So I have recently noticed there are multiple scores in NGEN, NGEN FS, which we all know since beginning,
yeah,
RET FS, and Risk FS.
yeah.
I tried to figure out what they are. I couldn't figure out in the knowledge base. Am I missing something or?
Sure,
Uh,
sure. I mean, we'll take you through it. Just let's just launch a single fund so we can yeah, and get that fund score page up. So basically, the risk score and the return score the red score and the risk score. These are the two separate scores that we have other than the regular main NGEN Fund Score. These two, the calculation method is quite similar to the main fund score. The main difference being the main fund score uses return by volatility, so it uses Sharpe ratio effectively.
NGEN FS.
Yes.
Okay.
So that is always looking at risk-adjusted returns. Now, when it comes to the risk score, what it does is it basically looks at the volatility. So it looks at volatility only. And
Okay.
basically a fund within its category, if it's quite high vol, regardless of its performance, if it's very high vol within its category, it will get a low score for risk. So a high score for risk means it's relatively safer than others. So if you get a risk score like 2 or 3 or 4, that means within the category, it's not one of the safest funds in the category on the basis of volatility and standard deviation. And similarly, the return score is basically using pure returns only, regardless of volatility. So if a fund is quite volatile but has had very good returns, it will come right on top. And which is why we have these two different kind of scores, risk score and return scores. One which is focusing on volatility only, the other one is focusing on return only. But our main NGEN score is actually kind of a blend of those two, because it's looking at risk adjusted returns.
Okay. Thank you. From the explanation you have given, I have one suggestion. Maybe I may not be perfectly right,
Please.
but think about it.
Yeah.
The human tendency is more higher score means better, or say something that is high.
Yeah.
Lower score means something that is less.
Yes.
But now you mentioned that NGEN FS higher means better, return score higher means better, risk higher means better.
In a risk higher means also better because of low volatility.
Means it's less risk.
Yes. So that's why the way we've done it is it's supposed to reflect that a high score is a good thing.
Okay.
So we've
high means
inverted.
good.
Yes,
To keep
we've
things simple.
inverted the calculation. So if you get a score like 9.5, that doesn't mean that this fund has very high volatility. It means it has lower volatility.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Perfect.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, hi. Can you just can you re-explain the mobile app portfolio view again? The last thing that you explained.
Yes.
Yeah, please go ahead.
Yes.
Just the mobile view.
Yes, just give me a minute. I'll just load a portfolio. Right. So this link that we will be available, you simply click on this link. So this is the preview that your client can also view on their mobile. First page, since this is like a mobile link, not every tab that you see on the platform will come up into this link. So we have made sure that basic details related to the portfolio does come up onto this link. First section will be components that form a part of the portfolio, followed by the holdings, exposures data is something that comes up. Next page shows you the performance of your portfolio against the benchmark. You could select the benchmark from this drop down as well, and then you can share it across as well. Right? So this is the portfolio performance against that of the benchmark. Next page is giving you basic market performance details. And the last section is this connect, wherein once your client has reviewed the portfolio, let's say they have certain comments that they want to share across with you, they can simply write in their message and that will be delivered to you on your mail ID. So you would be having a mail ID that is registered with us. You would be receiving that comment from your client on your registered mail ID. Now, how do you send this to your client? Firstly, you will be required to generate a PIN, a 4-digit PIN, either put in your number or create a random PIN, and you can click on create client link. Once that is done, this page will come up wherein you can click on this WhatsApp icon. So this was the client that I just opened and created the client link that will anytime show up on the top. You click on this WhatsApp icon, you put in your client's mobile number, and this information, this detail will be shared across with your client on their WhatsApp. And then just by clicking on this link and putting in the password or the pin, they would be able to have access to the mobile link of their portfolio.
Okay. So it is same like when we send portfolio from any other software, whatever we are using. We have a little customization that you have just told in the analysis and the other tabs.
I would not be knowing about what is the other
Yeah, it is
platform that.
just the portfolio view that we can, and this we can only operate in portfolio sections, right?
Yes, client link is a feature in the portfolio section. Even
Okay.
in the client section on a portfolio level, you can use this client link.
No, I want to use in portfolio section. Whatever
Yes.
addition we have done, it will reflect in portfolio section only, right?
No, I mean by addition, what do you mean?
No, I get it. Not a problem.
Yeah, sure.
Thank you.
Hello.
Yes.
Ma'am, I wanted to know like how can we get the recording of this session?
Yes, sure. So we have our YouTube page wherein we upload all our webinars that are conducted on our Zoom page. So
Okay.
by the next week, you will be able to receive today's webinars onto this YouTube page as well. We have a playlist mentioned as webinar. So you can access the same in this section as well.
Okay, thank you, ma'am.
Yeah.
Can we download NAV for particular fund for a year or for a specific period?
Yes, that is possible. So
Just the
you
NAV
can,
value.
sorry.
Just the NAV value, NAV history. जो हम MVC
Yes,
में निकलता है.
that is possible. You can search for a fund in a new page. So this is how it will come up. You can change the time period that is under consideration. You can select your respective time period. And then we have this CSV download of prices. So this comes up in an Excel format that.
ये डायरेक्ट के लिए भी निकलेगा, ये जो आप ऑल फंड्स में ऑप्शन दिखा रहे थे मुझे
Yes,
मिडिल ऑफ द
yes,
पेज.
yes. But that is anytime you can download the NAV on a single fund level that way.
Yeah, that
Be it
is.
direct or regular. So the price and the returns with the date also come up.
ये रिटर्न एक साल के हिसाब से दिखाएगा. I don't know.
This is like a 1 day return, right?
Okay, हाँ, got
For a
it.
1 year time period.
हाँ, okay, got it. Every day का वो change है ये
Correct.
date.
Everyday change. Correct.
Okay, got it. Thanks a lot. I get that.
Sure.
Hello.
Yes, sir.
This ratios and scores that you have mentioned is for which period? Is it for 1 year, 3 year, or 5 year?
So the score changes on a monthly basis. Month on
No,
month,
but what that I understood.
huh,
For what period do you calculate? Like you calculate the volatility or standard deviation, etc.
huh.
You consider which duration that to calculate the score, or is it only for a month?
No, so as I highlighted here as well, short, medium, and long. So we take into consideration 1 year, 3 year, and 5 year returns and volatility. So these will be the latest 1 year, latest 3 year, and latest 5 year data.
All three combined in the score.
Yes, so that is how we arrive. 10% weightage we give to the AUM, and the 90% we distribute it between short term returns and volatility, medium and long term returns and volatility. 30, 30, 30 each.
Okay. Suppose I want to, look at the score, or you calculate the, say, some ratios based on different period, like only for 1 year for different funds, for the sake of comparison. Will it be possible?
these scores are that way standard. We have not provided the opportunity. I mean, for the clients, you would not be able to create your respective scores. You can anytime run an analysis for a time period that you select in the compare section. But these scores, as we highlighted,
No,
these are our
no, I'm
proprietary.
not talking about the score. I'm talking about the ratios. Like if I want to
Huh.
know the Sharp ratio,
Yes,
uh,
possible, possible.
that is
I'll just
possible.
show you just a minute. Right. So you can just add in your list of funds right here. And then, as you highlighted, a 1 year or maybe a 3 year time period for which you want to view maybe the Sharp ratio for these funds. You can bring
Mhm.
them to the compare section. We have this returns column. Next to that, there is a settings wheel. You can click on that and you can put in your respective start date as well. So let's say I'll take in
Yeah.
a 1 year time period. So I've taken approx 8th March 2024 and I click on go. Now these data are respective for the time period that I have input. And the Sharp
And
ratio as well.
it could be for multiple ratios as well.
Yes, so for all the other data that you are viewing as well, these are respective now for the time period that I have set in.
Yeah, that I understood. ठीक, fine. Okay.
Any more questions? Please let us know. So if there are no questions, we would be winding up for today. Thank you all for joining in. You can visit our YouTube page. We, as I mentioned, have a dedicated playlist for all the webinars that have been conducted up until now. A total of 150 webinars have been uploaded, and today's webinar will also be uploaded by next week. Thank you all for joining in. Hope to see you again next week with a new topic. Thank you.